The moment she walked into the restaurant, the room changed. Not because she was loud. Not because she demanded attention. But because every conversation seemed to pause for a second before quietly continuing again. People looked. People whispered. People judged. And she pretended not to notice. What nobody knew was that before the night ended, the woman everyone was avoiding would completely change my life. Before we begin, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that people should never be judged by rumors, take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps us continue bringing powerful stories that touch hearts around the world. My name is Callan Mercer. 3 years ago, I was 39 years old, single, and completely exhausted by modern dating. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was simply tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of shallow conversations. Tired of meeting people who seemed interested only in appearances and status. After a failed engagement and several disappointing relationships, I had reached a point where I believed love simply wasn't meant for everyone. I focused on work instead. I owned a small architectural design firm and spent most of my days buried in blueprints, meetings, and deadlines. Life was predictable. Safe. Lonely. Then one afternoon my friends decided to interfere. They invited me to a charity networking event being held at an upscale restaurant downtown. Officially, the event was supposed to connect local business owners and raise money for community projects. Unofficially, everyone knew it was also a place where people tried to play matchmaker. I almost didn't attend. Looking back now, that single decision changed everything. The event started during the late afternoon and continued into the evening. Sunlight poured through massive glass windows overlooking a beautifully landscaped garden. People laughed. Business cards exchanged hands. Servers moved through the crowd carrying drinks and appetizers. Everything seemed normal. Until I noticed her. She sat alone at a table near the windows. Dark hair. Elegant black dress. A quiet expression that somehow seemed stronger than confidence. Most people avoided eye contact with her. Those who spoke to her rarely stayed longer than a minute. It was strange. The more I observed, the more obvious it became. Something was happening. People weren't simply ignoring her. They were deliberately avoiding her. I asked my friend Nolan who she was. The reaction I received surprised me. He laughed. 2 other friends exchanged amused glances. One of them actually smirked. Her name, they explained, was Vivienne Ashcroft. Then they warned me to stay away. When I asked why, nobody gave a clear answer. The responses were vague. Complicated. Trouble. Bad history. Difficult woman. Red flags. The problem was that nobody could explain what any of those words actually meant. It was all rumor. No facts. No details. Just assumptions. Then someone jokingly suggested I should ask her out. The entire group laughed. Not because they expected success. Because they expected disaster. That bothered me. I've always hated seeing people treated unfairly. Maybe it came from watching my mother struggle after my father abandoned us when I was young. Maybe it came from years of being underestimated myself. Whatever the reason, I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. So I walked over. The closer I got, the more I realized how wrong everyone had been. Vivienne didn't look arrogant. She looked lonely. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from being alone. The kind that comes from being misunderstood for so long that eventually you stop trying to explain yourself. When she noticed me approaching, her eyes revealed something unexpected. Not hostility. Not confidence. Caution. As if experience had taught her not to expect much from people. I introduced myself. She smiled politely. For the first time all evening, her expression softened. We talked. At first the conversation stayed simple. Work. Books. Travel. Family. But unlike most first conversations, there was no performance. No games. No pretending. She spoke honestly. She listened carefully. And somehow 2 hours disappeared. The sun began setting outside the windows. The restaurant lights grew warmer. Guests continued arriving. Yet neither of us seemed interested in talking to anyone else. For the first time in years, I felt completely present. When the evening finally ended, I asked if she would like to have lunch with me sometime. The surprise on her face was genuine. It wasn't the reaction of someone used to receiving attention. It was the reaction of someone who had forgotten what genuine interest felt like. She agreed. That should have been the beginning of a simple love story. Instead, it became something much deeper. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Apparently half the people from the event wanted updates. Most of them seemed disappointed when I told them our conversation had gone well. One friend finally explained what everyone had been whispering about. Years earlier, Vivienne had been married to a successful entrepreneur named Adrian. Their marriage appeared perfect from the outside. Then Adrian was arrested for financial crimes involving his company. The scandal dominated local news for months. Even though investigators eventually proved Vivienne had absolutely nothing to do with any of it, public opinion had already decided otherwise. People judged her simply because she had been married to him. The marriage ended. The scandal ended. But the rumors remained. Some people treated her as guilty by association. Others avoided her because they didn't want to be connected to controversy. Over time she became isolated. Excluded. Forgotten. The more I learned, the angrier I became. Not because of what happened. Because of how easily people accepted gossip as truth. Over the next several months, Vivienne and I spent more time together. Most of our dates happened during the day. Coffee shops. Art galleries. Weekend markets. Long walks through botanical gardens. Picnics in the park. I discovered things about her that nobody ever bothered learning. She volunteered at animal shelters. She secretly paid medical bills for struggling families. She donated anonymously to educational programs. She spent weekends mentoring young women trying to start businesses. The woman everyone feared was one of the kindest people I had ever met. But she carried invisible wounds. One afternoon we sat beside a lake watching ducks glide across the water. The sunlight reflected across the surface like liquid gold. For a long time neither of us spoke. Then she finally revealed the truth. After the scandal, people changed. Friends disappeared. Invitations stopped. Neighbors avoided conversations. Even people who knew she was innocent slowly drifted away because defending her became inconvenient. The isolation nearly broke her. For years she questioned herself. Wondered if something was wrong with her. Wondered if she somehow deserved it. Listening to her speak was heartbreaking. Because nobody should have to carry that burden alone. Nobody should spend years paying for mistakes they never made. That day changed everything for me. Until then I cared about her. After that day, I wanted to protect her heart. Not rescue her. Not fix her. Simply stand beside her. As the months passed, our connection deepened. We shared fears. Dreams. Failures. Regrets. Every conversation revealed another layer. And every layer made me admire her more. Meanwhile, the people who had once mocked our relationship began noticing something unexpected. Vivienne wasn't changing. Their perception of her was. The more they interacted with her, the harder it became to maintain old assumptions. Some apologized. Others remained silent. But everyone noticed. One evening nearly a year after our first meeting, we attended another charity banquet. Ironically, it was hosted by many of the same people who had once avoided her. The restaurant was beautiful. Candlelight reflected across polished glass. Soft music filled the air. Flowers decorated every table. As we sat together during dinner, I caught several people watching us. Not with judgment. With curiosity. Trying to understand how they had misjudged someone so badly. Vivienne looked stunning that night. But what captured my attention wasn't her appearance. It was her smile. A genuine smile. The kind that comes from feeling safe. The kind that comes from finally being accepted. At one point during dinner, she looked directly into my eyes. The noise around us disappeared. The conversations faded. The entire room seemed distant. For a brief moment it felt like we were the only two people there. The expression on her face wasn't excitement. It wasn't romance. It was trust. Complete trust. And that meant more to me than anything else. Months later, I planned a simple afternoon trip outside the city. Nothing extravagant. Just a scenic overlook surrounded by rolling hills and open skies. The weather was perfect. Families played nearby. Children flew kites across wide green fields. The entire day felt peaceful. We sat together watching sunlight stretch across the landscape. Then Vivienne began talking. She told me something I will never forget. She said several men had entered her life after the scandal. Some wanted to save her. Some wanted to impress her. Some wanted access to her social connections. But none of them truly saw her. Most were interested in a story. Very few were interested in the person. Then she took my hand. Her eyes filled with tears. And she told me why she chose me. She chose me because I never treated her like a project. Because I never asked her to prove her worth. Because I listened before judging. Because when everyone else focused on her past, I cared about her future. And because on the day everyone expected me to walk away, I sat down and stayed. Those words hit harder than any declaration of love. Because they represented something deeper. Respect. Understanding. Trust. A few months later, beneath a bright afternoon sky surrounded by family and friends, I asked her to marry me. This time nobody laughed. Nobody whispered. Nobody questioned the decision. The same people who once avoided her stood and applauded. Several openly cried. Because they finally understood what they had almost missed. Vivienne said yes. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Simply and beautifully. The way she did everything. Today, years later, people often ask how we met. They expect some romantic fairy tale. A dramatic coincidence. A magical moment. The truth is much simpler. A room full of people made assumptions. One person decided not to. That was all. Sometimes life changes because of extraordinary choices. Other times it changes because of ordinary kindness. Looking back, I realize something important. The world is filled with people carrying invisible scars. People hiding pain behind smiles. People surviving battles nobody else can see. And far too often, society judges them before learning their stories. Vivienne taught me that every person deserves to be seen clearly. Not through rumors. Not through mistakes. Not through assumptions. But through truth. And the truth is often far more beautiful than the stories people invent. Special request: before the ending, comment below with the words, "Kindness sees beyond rumors," if you believe every person deserves a fair chance to be understood. As I sit beside my wife today, watching sunlight pour through our kitchen windows during another ordinary afternoon, I sometimes think about that first event. The empty chair. The whispers. The judgment. The loneliness hidden behind a brave smile. Then I look at the life we've built together. The laughter. The peace. The love. And I realize something remarkable. The woman everyone was avoiding wasn't the problem. The problem was that nobody took the time to know her. Fortunately, one conversation was enough to change that. If this story touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you of someone who deserves a second chance, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope, encouragement, and healing today. Because sometimes the greatest love stories begin when one person chooses compassion over judgment. And sometimes that single choice changes everything forever. The end.